Guru.
Hello, Devika ma'am. Welcome. Bindu here. Hello, Devika ma'am. Welcome. Bindu here.
Bindu. Hello, Bindu.
Yeah.
Is the other session over?
Yeah, the other sessions are over. Yeah. Were you able to listen to any?
No, actually,
no.
I had an emergency. Actually, I was planning to join this morning, but there was an emergency I had to take. I had to actually be at the vets. So,
Okay.
I'm just back. Well,
Okay.
I hope it all went well.
Yeah, it went very well. Really good. Now we are waiting for the icing on the cake.
Oh. So, what were the papers like? I just took a look. I saw Swapna's paper and Vibhudi's, and so it was on different things, right? What was the connecting theme? Technology.
Technology, yeah. Technology and the gender divide, basically.
Okay.
And I think in the morning, Professor Priyanti Fernando. She was the activist among
Priyanti.
all of them.
Priyanti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She spoke about actually the access to technology. She was the one who
Okay.
focused on technology.
Okay. I have some research, actually a little bit of research on gender-based, the cyber violence against women. So,
yeah. Actually, no one has actually talked about cyber violence because even Priyanti ma'am, she focused on the access to, things like water, electricity, and in that sense,
okay.
not about the cyber. And I actually was wondering whether she would talk about it. So that would be a nice area, ma'am.
Yeah, I want to focus on, technologies that enable mobilities,
Yeah.
So we
Yes.
tend to always talk about technologies that allow women to become better housekeepers or
Exactly.
mothers and so on.
Yeah, this is what everyone was talking about today. And I think Swapna was talking about media and representations in the media and advertising.
I know about this.
Yeah. So that will be good. We could have the cyber angle also. Are we ready, Leena? Leena is our head of the department.
Oh, hello, ma'am. Hi.
Hello, Devika ma'am. Hello. We are ready. We are ready.
I think Prabhakaran is also here. He's joined us, I think, to hear.
Yes, yeah, okay. Oh, hello, Prabhakaran. How are you? But I can't hear you.
I think he's
Are you muted? He's muted.
Yeah,
he's speaking.
muted.
Yes, he's muted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Am I audible now? Yes.
Now you are.
How are you?
I'm
How
good.
are you,
I'm
ma'am?
good. I'm good.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Thank you very much. Bindu ma'am, hi.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhakaran, for
Ma'am, hi. Good
opening the
evening.
channel towards Dr. Devika.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, by the way, your the principal of your college happens to be a third cousin of mine.
He told us, yeah.
Yes, he told us. He told us, ma'am.
I gave him your number.
Yeah.
I know. He told me. No, we rarely
Yes,
meet.
Yeah, I think he'll be joining us today. Or is it a recording? I think it's a recording.
Actually, after my mother's passing, I've had very little connection with the extended family.
Anyway, you can consider us your extended family today. SD College.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, anyway, as
I know.
academics, I suppose we are anyway part of an extended family, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Ma'am, what about PG classes started? PG
Yes,
classes for
started.
PG
Yes.
started?
The third semester, the fourth semester classes have started. The PhD also. This year's PhD is, of course, one semester late, but we have started this.
Yeah.
I'm teaching now.
Are you doing online, ma'am, or is it? Are your classes online or are you?
Classes online.
Online.
We are allowing students who have, who come from extreme disadvantage, who don't have internet in their area or whose internet is very erratic. Those students are allowed to come back. They take the quarantine outside campus for a week, and they are in campus. So they are allowed to be on campus because that's the only way they really can participate. And of course, they also can't maybe miss, the library, the benefits of the library. So those students, and they come from very remote areas in Orissa and Bihar and so on. They are there on campus, but otherwise everything is online.
Yes. Advait has just put in an announcement that we are going to go live on YouTube now.
Oh, okay.
We are already live.
Oh, that's lovely. Actually, a lot of my classes now, I have a YouTube channel which I share with the students. So that's how we teach now.
Yes, I know. Lots of colleges are also doing that now.
Recording and uploading.
Shall we start, Leena?
Yeah. I think we'll start now. It's past 4.
Okay, ma'am.
Leena ma'am, shall I start?
Yeah, yes, Arati. Yes, Arati.
Okay.
We can start
Okay.
now. Okay.
A warm good evening to the galaxy of intellectuals, most valued invited guests, delegates, and students. The time has come to draw a curtain to our program as we come to the close of it. Welcome to the Valedictory session of the two-day virtual international conference on gender studies, post-1990s technological encounters and narrators of empowerment. The conference is organized by the PG Department of English, Sanatana Dharma College, Alappuzha, in collaboration with the Beti Bachao Abhiyan, Department of Students Development, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, Maharashtra. The revolutionary advancements in technology have transformed the world post-1990s. The technological boom and resultant man-machine interface have undermined the traditional binaries of gender, proving it obsolete with the advanced assistive reproductive options. The new gender constructs emanating from the dismantled experiences of a technologically oriented society have resulted in paradigm shifts in gender studies. These virtual platforms act as medium through which the democratization of knowledge and resources happens in the best possible way. In the two-day international conference, we are honored by the virtual presence of eminent speakers. On the behalf of the PG Department of English, SD College, and the Department of Students Development, Shivaji University, we are delighted to offer a gracious welcome to all of you to the valedictory session. Let's invoke the blessings of God Almighty, the prayer song.
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरा गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः.
Thank you, Bhagya. It's my privilege to invite Dr.Pratibha, Organizing Secretary and the Coordinator, Beti Bachao Abhiyan, Shivaji University, for the welcome address.
Gender refers to characteristics of men and women, girls and boys that are socially constructed. And gender influenced many factors. Technology is one of them. Technology encounters the gender and it has positive as well as negative impacts. In this context, two-day virtual conference, Gender Studies, post-1990s, technological encounter and narratives of empowerment highlight all these issues, and debate and discussion had been carried out throughout the plenary sessions and paper presentations on different themes. Now it is the time of the valedictory session. I am the organizing secretary, myself, Dr. Pratibha Desai, on the behalf of SDD, Beti Bachao Abhiyan, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, PG Department of the English, Sanatan Dharma College, Alpazo, had welcomed all the dignitaries for these valedictory sessions. I welcome with my bottom of the heart Professor J. Devika, Professor Center for Development, Trivendrapuram, Kerala. Professor J. Devika is a renowned academician, historian, social critic, and a feminist and professor at the Center for Development of Studies, Trivendrapuram. She is bilingual writer, writes extensively on contemporary issues in both English Malayalam. She is award-winning translator and a leading presence in the academic field. She has developed a website Swatantrayala Avadhini, paying tribute to the first generation of the Malayalam feminist. I welcome ma'am. I welcome ma'am once again on the behalf of this organizing team. I welcome today's president of the valedictory session, Honorable Dr. P.S. Patil, Pro Vice Chancellor, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. Dr. P.S. Patil had 31 years of teaching and research experience. His major fields of research are renewable energy, nanomaterials, non-fabrics. He has 492 international journals and patents. He is recipient of prestigious Dada Fellowship. His contribution to both academic and administrative work is remarkable. Welcome, sir, for this valedictory session. I welcome once again, sir. I welcome Dr. Leena P., Associate Professor and Head of the PG Department of English, SD College, for this presidential address. I welcome Dr. P.R. Unikrishnan Pillai, Principal College, SD College, for felicitation. I welcome P.S. Parameshwaran, IQ Coordinator, SD College. I welcome the resource persons for the plenary sessions, those who are delivered the plenary sessions, Professor Vibhuti Patel Madam and Professor Habil Roxana Mariniswa, MS Priyanti Fernando, Mr. Swapan Gopinathan, and I welcome various technical chairperson, Sri R. Indulal, Dr. Tommy John, and Dr. E. Krishnan, and Smith R. Prasidina, and Dr. D. R. Sati, Dr. B. N. Nair, and Professor Shakuntala Setter, and Vidya Katti Madam, and Dr. Shamla Madam. For this valedictory sessions, I welcome all the paper presenter who are the part of this conference and had presented their presents, and other chairpersons, Dr. Anjana, Dr. Rajesh V. Nair, Dr. Jyoti Mol P. I welcome all the participants for the valedictory. Once again, I welcome for all of you this auspicious valedictory functions.
Thank you, ma'am. It's our pleasure to welcome you too to the function, Pratibha ma'am. It's my honor and pleasure to invite Professor Dr. P.S. Patil, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Shivaji University, for the presidential address.
Good evening to all of you. The chief guest of today's function, Professor J. Devika, Center for Developmental Studies, Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, Coordinator of Beti Bachao Abhiyan and Organizing Secretary, Dr. Pratibha Desai Madam, Dr. Pai, Dr. Pillai, Dr. eminent speakers and dear participant friends. I am indeed very happy to be here on the occasion of valedictory function of an international conference on gender studies post-1990s, technological encounters and narratives of empowerment, organized by Department of Social Welfare, Beti Bachao Abhiyan, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, in collaboration with Sanatana Dharma College, Alapuzha, Kerala, during 12th and 13th of February 2021. I am happy to note that several plenary talks from eminent resource persons were organized on various thrust areas of gender studies. There is an overwhelming response from all over the country, and about 70 papers were presented in these international conferences. This has elucidated the importance of the studies on gender equality in India and abroad. This event has highlighted the importance of gender inequality, structural inequality, and other pivotal areas wherein we need to work more and we need to do more. It is also interesting to note that this conference has addressed issues of feminism and gender inequality in the international landscape. Shivaji University, through Beti Bachao Abhiyan, is actively engaged in many activities. We have organized many awareness programs, students' activities, students' competitions, workshops, seminars, street plays, and other activities to emphasize the need of further work to be undertaken to reduce gender inequality gap. The gender gap index of our country is in between 0.65 to 70, whereas that of Canada and America, it is about 0.85 to 0.9. In contrast, several parts of underdeveloped countries exhibit gender gap index of 0.5. As far as our country is concerned, this gender gap index has to be improved up to 0.9. This is possible through various academic programs and policy decisions. Use of technology can also spearhead improvement in this gender gap index. I am sure this international conference has given you enough insight in this area and has decided the way forward to reduce the gender gap inequality. Once again, I am thankful to all the organizers of this international conference for inviting me over here to give a valedictory address. I am also thankful to all the participants and resource persons. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. The fragrance of flowers spread only in the direction of wind, but the goodness of a person spreads in all directions. We are delighted to have an eminent speaker, Dr. J. Devika, Professor, the Center for Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram, as a chief guest of the valedictory ceremony. A renowned academician, historian, social critic, and a feminist, J. Devika is a professor at the Center for Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram. She is a bilingual writer and writes extensively on contemporary issues in both Malayalam and English. She is an award-winning translator and a leading presence in the academic field. She has won several accolades, which includes the Guru Darshana Award for the best work on Malayalam culture, the 2014, instituted by the Methala Sri Narayana Samaja. The Abdullah Award for the best work of translation from Malayalam to English for Hang Women in the year 2015. We are truly humbled by your presence, ma'am. It's my privilege to invite you for the valedictory address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Arati, for that very generous introduction. And also thank you to Pratibha and Dr. Patil, who spoke before me, as well as Bindu and others, Prabhagaran and many other friends at the SP College for inviting me to this session. It is always a great pleasure to speak to the participants of a gender studies conference. Gender studies is one of the major disciplines to which I have contributed. I sometimes consider it my parent discipline. Though I'm trained as a historian, I have been contributing to gender studies as a field right from my PhD days. So I'm delighted to be here. So thank you very much. And I also think that the theme that we chose to deliberate upon is an important one, very important. Though I am not sure if I would buy any more the optimism that I see in your conference note. There's a heady optimism there. It's quite characteristic of, I think, the early years of this millennium, when we thought that the expansion of digital technologies would be a new chance for women to renew their claims to the public, because with the digital public emerging, I think there was a great optimism among at least a substantial section of feminists who believed that it was possible to claim citizenship a little more easily in these spaces. And it was more possible for them to utilize these spaces in order to gain citizenship, build solidarities across national boundaries, and so on. And one of the saddest truths that we are coming to recognize now is that publics are neither more equal than offline publics, nor are national boundaries so easily crossed. A harsh reminder of the um, pervasiveness of patriarchy in our very difficult times. So I'm so glad that you have picked this topic for deliberation, because it is indeed something that impinges on our lives, shapes our existence as people living in the early 21st century. Now, I had a quick look at the program, and I see that many different kinds of some different kinds of technologies have been discussed. I thought that a fitting theme to talk about in this valedictory address would be digital technologies, perhaps the prospects of citizenship advanced by digital technologies. I have some research on this in Kerala, and I thought it might be a good idea for me to share that research with you in this valedictory address. Now, digital technologies have always interested me. The whole question of gender in digital technology have always interested me because, in some way, digital technologies hold a promise of space and mobility to women. As I mentioned to you before, early cyber feminism uh, actually built much on these promises. And I think even though we have been, we are sadder and wiser now, prospect of there is no going back on the fact that women have an equal right to such spaces, and they have an equal right to take advantage of the mobility that digital technologies offer us. So, and you know what? If you look at the discussions of gender and technology in India, there was a time when, the 1980s, when it always meant, the 1970s and 80s, when it always meant the technological changes in agriculture and industry, which were rendering women workers jobless. So, technologies in productive sectors, which were effectively rendering women workers jobless. Then in the 1980s, the whole sense shifted. And the moment you heard technology, you were usually talking about reproductive technology. So surrogate, the whole question of surrogate motherhood and so on were discussed. I think that now when we talk about technology, the quick sense that we get is of digital technology. I think this is interesting because there are other kinds of technology that women have actually mastered in much larger numbers, which we really don't think much of. For example, a greater number of women are mastering the technologies of mobility now. I mean, simple fact that more and more women can drive, and the kind of difference that it makes, it's not something that is thoroughly researched. What difference does it make when a woman acquires an automobile, learns how to drive it, learns how to take care of it, and what change does that make to her life? Because navigation of offline spaces probably becomes much easier when she is in control of. I think digital technologies, as far as women are concerned, hold an importance that is similar. This, you navigate online spaces if you have control over digital technology. You have some control over it. And there, I think there is a lot of work coming in. Though we still find it very, very difficult to do the conventional kind of field work. Because for young women, and we discovered this in a research project, a small research project that I led in 2018-19, where we had a sample of 300 women students studying in 5 prominent colleges in Kerala, 2 of which were exclusively women's colleges, and around another 100 students who basically were doing postgraduate education in the university departments in Kerala. But in fact, the interesting part of the study is the survey of the 300 degree students, graduate level students in these colleges. So our interest was actually to find out about gender-based cyber violence against women. Now, there is a big debate about this. The police does not take it seriously at all. Now, you know that there is a much greater interest in violence against women in India since the 1990s. And this is, of course, a spin-off of India signing the CEDAW. And worldwide, there has been legislation against sexual harassment women at workplace, against domestic violence, and so on. And those echoes were also evident in India. So right from the early years of this century, we have seen a proactive legislation against sexual violence at workplace, against domestic violence. We've seen the reform of rape law. We have seen strong laws being brought against for the protection of children against sexual abuse. We've also seen some legislation against crime that was not really thought to be a gendered crime till very recently. For example, acid attacks. So then, the reported crime against women has grown in India. If you look at the National Crime Records Bureau statistics, has actually grown up. Or it has increased manifold. So it's like the shift is something like of 83% increase between 2007 and 2016. And this is probably because of the reduced stigma in reporting crime. That could be one possible reason. But what is worrying is the extremely low rates of conviction. So if for all crime in India, around 49% were convicted in 2016. Barely 19% of the crimes against women were convicted. And this is a worrying situation. It's a very worrying situation. And if you look closely at the data, you also, there are 2 things that I think which stand up. Are very striking. One is the fact that the largest share, the largest single component is what is called cruelty by husband and relatives. That's the single largest head. 33% of all crimes against women fall in this. It says something about marriage and family in India. Secondly, the second point of interest is the fact that assault on woman with intent to outrage her modesty is the highest category of charge. The second highest, at least. First is cruelty by husband. Second is outrage of modesty. Even that says something. In fact, it actually, if you look at the language, it sounds so Victorian and outdated, outraging modesty of women, as if men have no modesty at all and nobody can really outrage the modesty of men. It's a very Victorian idea, of modesty being the ornament of womanhood, and to strip off the ornament is the ultimate crime that someone can commit against a woman. So this Victorian charge is one that is used most frequently. So you can see that says something else about the society in which Indian women live and the kind of crimes that are taken seriously by the police. So I suppose then it doesn't need a lot of explanation to convince you that gender-based cyber violence against women is not taken seriously at all by police. There's little reporting, so there's the doubt that women don't report this crime too much, partly because their access to the internet may be barred if they do by their family. But it's interesting how, however, that the police don't take this seriously, because what we have seen over the years is that many offline crimes are exacerbated. The harm done by many offline crimes against women are exacerbated by the use of digital technologies. For example, we've seen several cases in which of gang rape, for example, which have been recorded, and the agony of the victim has been extended by the transmission of these videos. So it's no longer really possible to draw a firm line between offline crime and online crime and say that, oh, online crime is less important. Often, offline crime is exacerbated, supported by these technologies. Anyway, that is something so that's the kind of context in which we did this, we did this research. So our research was a mixed method research, and it, as I told you, covered 300 students in 5 colleges, and it offers some preliminary insights into how Malayali women inhabit and negotiate the cyberspace, the kind of violence they encounter online, and how they deal with it as well. So I'm not really trying to give you all the details because we have time. I'm just going to give you some highlights of this research. So you know that Kerala is a place with very, very high internet penetration. Cell phone ownership is among the largest in the world. And our survey respondents also showed, kind of conform to this. 89% of the students surveyed had their own cell phone, and another 11% had cell phones that belonged to their parents or brothers or sisters. The idea that female literacy and access to higher education lead to lower levels of cyber violence against women is actually false. And it's false not only empirically, but even otherwise, because very often greater individuation of women through education can potentially cause a rise in domestic violence in patriarchal societies that are not willing to welcome that individuation. So if we find Malayali women being extremely disadvantaged by gender-based cyber violence against them, that's really nothing surprising. And I don't think a simple kind of equation between women's access to higher education and women's ability to defend themselves from this kind of violence, there should be no simple equation between these two. And what is really interesting in our study is that we saw this huge gap, because as I told you, we surveyed college students. Many of them were young, in fact, teenagers. So 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. You could see a very clear shift. As you moved in through age cohorts, you could see the confidence levels grow. The first year degree students were extremely wary of negotiating digital spaces. Any negative experience would just lead them to deleting a profile and exiting. But the postgraduate students that we surveyed, the ones who were studying in the university departments, you saw a sharp difference in how they responded. Those women were much less afraid. It's obvious that 5 years of college had done a great deal to these young women. So though we kind of all the time, we are always, complaining about college education. We keep on saying that college education is not delivering any of the skills that people really need in their lives. I think we should take that with a pinch of salt, because clearly 5 years of college education have instilled in young women a confidence that makes them brave enough to challenge this kind of violence, indirectly at least, even if not directly, at least indirectly, without deleting their profiles, at least. Uh, Deleting a profile means exiting, not claiming any citizenship in digital space. So, yeah. So, given you know, the other thing you have to really take seriously is in a society like Kerala, which is extremely patriarchal, and the whole divide between private and public and domestic is very sharp. Now, in Kerala, really, we don't have a private. What we have is a public and a domestic. Public, you all know what it is. And domestic is the space of the home, which is very closely controlled by, watched by authorities outside, which may be community authorities, which may be the state. And the rules of domestic life are also shaped very closely by the state and community. Whereas this thing called private is an extremely fraught thing. So anybody who claims to have a private is immediately suspect. The private is, if you claim a private, I know I don't have to explain a lot to Malayalis here and young Malayali women here. I'm sure you know how hard it is to keep a private space here. So having private preferences, having private networks, having private connections, etc., is considered to be extremely suspect. So the moment you open a profile and you see what are the contents of your profile, contents of your profile, including your picture, your photo, which you upload, can be very easily read as stepping out of the domestic and, in fact, revealing a private. Because on your profile, you usually, even the most innocuous things that you write reveal your preferences. Uh, your preferences, your likes and dislikes, your friends, who your friends are, who your your connections are. All this is revealed in a profile. So to start a profile on a social media platform itself is considered to be extremely suspect in general. And this is the reason why a great many of our respondents who we interviewed told us that their families watch their profiles very, very closely, even though their families were extremely keen that they learn how to use the internet. So it's interesting because, and many girls said that they had to indeed learn how to negotiate the internet, how to navigate the internet, how to make use of the internet, because their parents thought that this was a necessary skill which girls had to acquire in order to be married well. Because they thought that husbands, for example, living abroad, husbands may be in the Gulf, and the young bride would be expected to be the contact point between him and his aged parents and so on. So the girl is allowed to learn about the internet, learn how to use the internet, but to create her own profile on the internet and to be a presence there is troublesome for a lot of families. And a lot of these young women whom we studied were struggling with those kinds of issues at home. And actually, our data showed that it was clear that women of this age, between 18 and 20 mostly, their usage of internet can be marked safe. Safe in the sense that they do not try anything that might challenge. That might be adventurous. They don't do porn sites. They don't do Tinder. all that, so that kind of thing. So 43% reported that they used internet for legitimate activities like studying or a little bit of entertainment on YouTube and for communicating with family and friends. But even though this was the case, 1/3 of the sample seemed to be using internet to reach beyond immediate family and acquaintance circles. So they seem to be finding new friends on the internet. They also seem to be, in fact, more than finding friends, they were trying to seek information that was not available to them through family and friends. For example, many women were trying to find out about jobs outside Kerala, opportunities for education outside Kerala. Some were seeking health advice. In fact, it's interesting how many women were seeking health advice on the internet and without the knowledge of their families. Again, now you now, and I told you this changes quite rapidly and starkly when you look at the university students. University students were far more interested in public life. So they were using the internet not just to communicate with family and friends, but in a more active political kind of way to understand society and politics in a more critical kind of way, to develop the self beyond the confines of community and family. So those were the kinds of uses that postgraduate students were putting the internet to. But I'm talking here about the younger ones, the graduate students. But again, very interestingly, this is a very interesting insight into the minds of these young persons. So the students surveyed also very heavily favored women's right to free speech online, even as they demanded that women should take responsibility for staying safe online. So we had two situation questions presented. One was on a YouTuber who was attacked by trolls, and we asked the students what she should do. Should she quit or should she stay? Then there was a second question on revenge porn, of a woman who had a boyfriend with whom she had shared some intimate pictures and who was now uh, threatening her. Now, 73% of our sample said that in the first case, that is, the YouTuber who was being threatened by trolls should not quit, that she should stay and fight. Then they all said that they would have supported her if she stayed. And in the second case, they said that yes, the woman should seek legal recourse, but they also said that the woman is partly to blame because she was not keeping safe. So, in sum, it's clear that in a trade-off between building up oneself as a public persona and staying safe, the former, that is, building up oneself as a public persona, is deemed more valuable than staying safe. And in the second case, the trade-off between sexual pleasure and avoiding endless torment through revenge porn, clearly the students prefer safety, to pain, safety to pleasure. So now this could well be related to the fact that a certain degree of social sympathy and formal redress is available to the woman who seeks a public identity through the internet. But the woman who is targeted through revenge porn for having sought sexual pleasure, social support she will receive is more or less zero. So what really struck us is how the women were willing to take, therefore, to say that young women, when they seek pleasure, they should take some responsibility as well. While they felt that the young woman who's aspiring for a public identity online should be protected by the police fully. Now, when we also interviewed the police in Kerala, especially the top officials in charge of cybercrime. And what was truly, truly striking was that police thought exactly the opposite. So, in the eyes of the police, these young women who aspired to a public persona were irresponsible. They were, according to the police, they did not really deserve any kind of support because they, according to the police, were asking for trouble. So why would a woman want to have a public identity? They asked. Why can't she just go online, do some shopping, and then log out safe? They also, but at the same time, interestingly enough, they were extremely sympathetic to the woman who was targeted by revenge porn. Not because they thought that the woman had a right to sexual pleasure, but because they immediately thought about it as a family issue. That is, they immediately identified it as doing harm to the woman's family and honor. So, in order to protect the woman's family honor, the police believed that they should act absolutely fast. And so, they wanted to prioritize this other, the woman targeted by revenge porn over the woman who aspired for a public identity. Exactly the opposite of what you know what Malayali women are actually demanding. So, in fact, so this is something I think we all need to think about. Why does so you see here you have a, what should I say, huge gap in the way women understand technology. I mean, clearly women identify digital technologies as a route to mobility. So building a public persona means for a woman, it is a form of mobility. It is a form of claiming space in the public and refusing to stay put in the private. So, a woman who actually creates a YouTube channel and presents herself there regularly is aspiring for mobility. That's it, and that is her right. However, our authorities do not think about it in the same way. The authorities do not consider it important for a woman to be mobile. And if at all they concede anything of that kind, they sure, very clear, make it very clear that the woman can be allowed to go out only for things like shopping. So this is what a senior police officer in Kerala told me. This verbatim, these were his words. He said, nothing will happen if you go online, say maybe to Amazon, pick the stuff that you want, put them in your basket, pay for them in a safe way, log out safe. If you're going to loiter there, if you're going to hang about, trouble comes when you hang around public space, where you post your photo, you make friends, you try to talk online. That's when the trouble starts. So women who do that kind of stuff are asking for it. So we are not going to prioritize their cases. And this applies for, he told me, any woman. That is a woman celebrity who's a movie star or a woman who's a leading talk show host, whoever it may be, doesn't matter. A woman out there online talking and posting an image is looking for trouble. This is exactly the opposite of what young women think as the use of technology. Now, I'm thinking how absurd this argument of the police is. And this came out in a case that was being discussed in Kerala very widely at this time when we were doing this research. And this had to do with a case in North Kerala, a photo studio, a wedding photo studio in North Kerala. Now, in Kerala, weddings are a very big family community affair. So, weddings are, and wedding photography is a thriving business until the pandemic, of course, and now I think it's reviving now. So, every marriage function has a designated photographer and a videographer who is allowed freely in everywhere, who can take photos of anybody in the wedding space. And in fact, the wedding photographer is present the day before, taking pictures of everyone in the family, capturing, videographer is capturing images everywhere. They're full freedom they have. But remember, this is happening in the presence of the family. Mhm. So the girl, you cannot imagine the bride to be safer. Now, this case involved a wedding photography studio in the Kannur district of Kerala, selling images of the brides as well as other young women who were present at the wedding site as guests to pornographers. So these images were being morphed and reused elsewhere for porn. So, I mean, this case should have enlightened us, the police at least, because in these cases, the woman was not posting anything online. If at all it was posted online, it was with the full knowledge of her guardians. And you cannot imagine a situation where a woman is more closely guarded than on her wedding day. So the images that were captured on the wedding day were well used to produce porn. And the complaint, actually, the police began to investigate this complaint when several brides, several young women were being questioned by their in-laws. So apparently, the bodies of these young women were used in so many porn videos that somehow the news of this reached their families. And the husbands' families began to question the chastity of these young women, their sexual purity. They were suspect. In fact, one young woman was accused of being a porn star. And when she had never even, didn't have the faintest clue was what was going on. And it then, the police traced it back to the same photo studio. Now, just think about it. I just want to stop by leaving this thought in your mind. Digital technologies produce images that leak. This leakage can never be stopped by removing anybody's profile or not getting online. There is no way you can stop this by preventing women's full citizenship online. It's actually the reverse. It is only by making sure that women have equal access to digital technologies uh, and acquire the necessary knowledge to control them, and the state sets up a proper framework to address complaints against violence, cyber violence against women online. Only then can this whole problem of leak begin to be addressed. So we can only begin to address these problems only if we have all these, make sure that women are confident online and that there are enough mechanisms of redressal when they are faced with cyber violence. Shutting up women in a house is no, and shutting up women in their families, preventing them from going online is definitely not going to solve the problem at all. And I think that lesson applies to all the technologies that have to do with shifting people's mobility, improving people's mobility. And that's probably the single biggest reason why we need to be alert about claiming our rights in digital space. I will stop there, and I hope a bit of research kind of caps is a fitting ground to your deliberations of the past days. And I wish you all very well. And once again, thank you for inviting me to this meeting. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And we have been sailing through an insightful and an illuminating academic discourse. And you have demystified the concepts and domains of gender studies on digital technology and women, on cyber violence and women mobility. And your erudite presentation has paved the way for illuminating discussion also. And I hope your talk has helped the participants to channelize their sensibilities on gender studies in the right way. And thank you so much, ma'am, for your illuminating and enlightening talk. Thank you so much, ma'am. Felicitation is inspiration to others. We are happy to have our well-wishers here. So let me invite Dr. P.R. Unnikrishna Pillai, Principal of SD College, to offer felicitation to the valedictory session.
Honorable President of this valedictory session, Professor Dr. P.S. Patil, Honorable Pro-Vice Chancellor, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, Organizing Secretary of this program, Dr. Pratibha Desai, eminent speaker for the valedictory address, Professor J. Devika, Center for Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram, Head Department of English of our college, Dr. Leena P. Pai, Coordinator IQAC of this college, Dr. P.S. Parameswaran, Srimati R. Karthia, Assistant Professor of English of this institution, eminent faculty members of the Department of English, dear delegates and participants. Today we come to the concluding session of the Gender Studies Post-1990 Technological Encounters and Narratives of Empowerment. This topic, a topic of great relevance in the present context, actually dealt with the various aspects concerned with the empowerment, especially among the women communities. We all know that throughout the world there is empowerment among the ladies after 1990. 1990 is actually meant for the globalization, and after the globalization there was vast improvement among the ladies, especially in places where once occupied by the gents. And everywhere ladies now compete with the gents for equality. And in the beginning of 21st century, we could see that in all areas of or all walks of our life, the ladies actually come in the forefront. And this conference actually discussed the various aspects concerned with the empowerment among the ladies. And I hope definitely this program helped all of you to gather recent developments among the ladies. And now we come to the end of this program, but I hope in future also we should organize more programs of this kind, especially to encourage the women who are coming in the areas where the gents are always occupied, and they can come so that they can occupy the places where the gents are once occupied or once occupied. So with these words, let me conclude my felicitation. I wish all the success to the program already conducted, and I also hope that we should conduct more programs of this kind in future. I also congratulate the HOD of the Department of English of this college, as well as the faculty members of the Department of English of this institution for organizing this type of marvelous conference. Once more, I thank all of you for silent listening. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. We remember with gratitude your undaunting support in all the endeavors of the department. It's my pleasure to invite the head of the department of PG Department of English, Dr. Leena P. Pai, to offer felicitation.
Good evening, everyone. Respected Chair of the session, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor of Shivaji University, Professor Dr. P.S. Patil, Chief Guest of the session, Professor J. Devika, Center for Development Studies, Principal of SD College, Dr. P.R. Unnikrishna Pillai, Organizing Secretary of the International Conference and Coordinator of Beti Bachao Abhiyan, Dr. Pratibha Desai, Conference Coordinator Srimati R. Karthika, IQAC Coordinator of SD College, Dr. P.S. Parameshwaran, dear colleagues, participants and students. I am extremely happy to offer felicitations to this great venture of the 2-day virtual international conference on gender studies post-1990s, technological encounters and narratives of empowerment. Let me first of all congratulate the English Department of SD College and Beti Bachao Abhiyan, Department of Students Development, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, for organizing this conference, which has discussed a topic of immense relevance in modern day society. The conference was able to bring under its purview the impact of technology on gender and the inequalities experienced in the access to technology, the control of technology, and the knowledge of technology by different genders. I am sure that the participants were able to enhance their knowledge horizons from the scholarly deliberations of the conference. I once again congratulate all the organizers and patrons of the conference and hope that more of this kind will be organized in the future. I am sure that the world will move several steps forward in terms of gender equality through intellectual knowledge sharing of this kind. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Leena ma'am. We acknowledge the solid support and guidance that you have given in all the ventures of the department. And it's my privilege to welcome Dr. P.S. Parameshwaran, IQAC Coordinator, SD College, to offer felicitation.
Good evening to all. Respected Chair of this valedictory session, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor of Shivaji University, Professor Dr. P.S. Patil, Organizing Secretary and Coordinator of Beti Bachao Abhiyan, Shivaji University, Dr. Pratibha Desai, Chief Guest of this valedictory session, Professor J. Devika, Principal of SD College, Dr. P.R. Unnikrishna Pillai, Head of English Department, SD College, Dr. Lina Pai, and Conference Coordinator, Mrs. Karthika, Associate Professor of English Department, and dear participants. I am very happy to be here in this valedictory session of 2-day conference on gender studies post 1990, technological encounters and narratives of empowerment. This conference covered each and every aspects of equal opportunity for women and other underprivileged groups of population. The eminent speakers and their simple way of presentation and active interaction of participants made this conference a great success. Hope all participants have rejuvenated on attending this 2-day conference. I thank Shivaji University for giving an opportunity to this joint venture. I wish all success in the new endeavors of social commitment activities of Shivaji University. With this, I conclude my words. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. It was really inspiring. It's my pleasure to welcome my dear friend and the conference coordinator, Ms. Kartika R., to propose a vote of thanks and to share the quintessence of the conference.
Dignitaries of the session, distinguished guests and dear participants, good afternoon one and all. We have reached the end of the two-day virtual international conference on gender studies post-1990s, technological encounters and narratives of empowerment. This joint venture by the Postgraduate Department of English, Sanatana Dharma College, and Beti Bachao Abhiyan, Department of Students Development, Shivaji University, sought to examine the role of gender in the wake of technologies, in particular, the access of girl students to technologies affecting their empowerment. Being inaugurated on the forenoon of 12th February 2021, the conference had 4 plenary sessions and 12 technical sessions which witnessed participation of academicians and students from across the globe. The groundwork for the conference had begun in October 2020, following which the call for papers was circulated by the end of November 2020. Papers were invited from across the disciplines pertaining to the thrust area, and we got 72 abstracts, out of which 63 were shortlisted. The plenaries were handled by eminent professors and activists which threw light on the changing scenario of gender construct and the impact of technology upon gender roles. Professor Vibhuti Patel, former professor and head, Department of Economics, SNDT University, and also former professor at Advanced Center for Women's Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, handled the first plenary. Her talk on the shame of sex selection and pre-birth elimination of girls was an eye-opener towards the violence faced by women from womb to tomb. The second plenary address was delivered by Professor Habil Roxana Marinescu, professor at the Department of Modern Languages and Business Communication, Bucharest University of Economic Studies, Romania. Her talk generated a discourse on feminism and gender activism in Europe. She elaborated on the need for new methods of tackling gender inequalities in the increasingly tech-savvy and globalized Europeans. The second day of the conference began with the plenary talk by Ms. Priyanti Fernando, Executive Director of International Women's Rights Action Watch Asia Pacific. She spoke about the impact of technology on women and the structural inequalities of technological encounters. The last plenary session was handled by Dr. Swapna Gobinath, Associate Professor of Film and Cultural Studies at Symbiosis Institute of Media and Communication, Pune. Her talk illustrated the notion of brand feminism in the age of neoliberal market economy, lucidly enunciating the transformation of patriarchy as a choice for the new woman. Along with the 4 plenaries, the national as well as international papers which came up as part of the 12 technical sessions were of high standards, keeping in pace with the various facets of the thrust area. Former Associate Professors of English at SD College, Srimati Prasida Verma, Dr. R. Sathi, Sri R. Indulal, and Dr. Tommy John chaired the forenoon and afternoon technical sessions on the first day of the conference, along with the present Associate Professors of the department, Dr. E. Krishnan Nambudiri and Dr. Bindu Nair. Technical sessions with paper presentations from streams of sociology, economics, international relations, public administration, management and demography were handled by Professor Shakuntala Shettar, Department of Sociology and Director, Research Center for Women's Studies, Karnataka University, Dharwad, Professor Vidya Kati, Department of Economics, Shivaji University, and Dr. Shamala B. Dasov, Department of Sociology, MMS Arts, Commerce, Science and Home Science College, Belgaum. The last 3 technical sessions were chaired by Dr. Anjuna J., Assistant Professor and Head, PG Department of English, NSS College, Pandalam, Dr. Rajesh V. Nair, Assistant Professor of English, School of Letters, MG University, Kottayam, and Dr. Jodhimol P., Associate Professor and Head, PG Department of English and Center for Research, Basilius College, Kottayam. The deliberations that took place as part of the 4 plenaries and the 12 technical sessions have thrown light on gender mainstreaming and highlighted the role of technology in the empowering process. The talks and discussions are highly relevant to the humanity across the globe, and hence selected papers will soon be published and made accessible to public. After this brief quintessence of the conference, let me pass on to my duty. The president of this session is Professor Dr. P.S. Patil, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor of Shivaji University. An erudite scholar and eminent professor of physics, he is the founder coordinator of the School of Nanoscience at Shivaji University. On behalf of the entire conference team, I express our sincere thanks to you, sir, for presiding over this meeting. We are honored to have Professor J. Devika, Professor, Center for Development Studies, as the chief guest of this session. Her insightful talk was in fact a supplement to what we had been listening for the last 2 days. On behalf of the entire crew of this international conference, I thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation and delivering the valedictory address. I express our sincere gratitude to Dr. P.R. Unnikrishna Pillai, respected Principal of SD College, for offering the felicitations. Our sincere thanks to Dr. P.S. Parameshwaran, IQAC Coordinator, SD College, for his support in the smooth conduct of this program. We are greatly indebted to Dr. Pratibha Desai, Coordinator of Beti Bachao Abhiyan, Shivaji University, and the Organizing Secretary of this conference. Since the day of its inception, we have been constantly interacting over phone, by email and WhatsApp to materialize this. Despite holding various administrative positions, Pratibha ma'am is a compassionate teacher who is actively there at the forefront of welfare campaigns for students. On behalf of the conference team, I express our heartfelt thanks to you, ma'am, for being with us in this venture. I also thank all the dignitaries who handled the plenary sessions and the eminent professors who chaired the technical sessions. Next, I place on record my sincere thanks to my beloved colleagues. First, I thank Dr. Leena P. Pai, Associate Professor and Head, Department of English, for her love and encouragement. She entrusted me with this responsibility 5 months back and gave me complete freedom to set sail. When the weather was rough, she instilled in me the courage to navigate with caution and change routes if required, but never allowed me to anchor abruptly without reaching the destination. Now, as we reach the end of this 2-day international conference, I express my deep gratitude to you, ma'am, for inspiring me to make this happen. I thank Dr. N. Saraswati Andajanam and Dr. E. Krishnan Nambudiri for their advice and valuable suggestions which helped me in materializing this. My mother, friend and mentor in the department, Dr. Bindu Nair, is the adorable teacher whom I am indebted to in all my endeavors. The pains she took right from the moment of editing the letter for collaboration to training the students in moderating and comparing jobs made this program culminate successfully. It was Bindu ma'am who set the ground for smooth sailing. On behalf of the entire conference team, I express my sincere thanks to you, ma'am, for motivating and grooming us. I express my heartfelt thanks to my dear colleagues, Devi ma'am, Krishnanand sir, Neeta, Sarita, Ashwati, Arathi, Parvati, Rajashree, Meera, Leena R. Pillai and Najia for their cooperation and support. From brochure designing to peer reviewing, from comparing to giving technical assistance, at various stages of this conference, all of them have stood with me, pacifying my mind and boosting my confidence. I am indebted to all of you for your warmth and affection. Special thanks to Mr. Sam Alex, the captain who controlled the technical helm of this ship. Finally, my love and sincere thanks to my dearest students, Vijay, Sharanya, Akhil, Jeena, Advai, Lakshmi Jayamohan, Lakshmi S, Bhagya, Ben, Anakha, Shivapriya, Aishwarya, Arya, Krishnapriya, Saraswati, Amal, Atulya and Sheba for their hard work, support and cooperation. Thank you, my dear children, for your support. Before I conclude, I remember with gratitude my family members, especially my grandmother who takes care of my kids in all these days of hectic work, showering on me her immense love, igniting my spirits to explore new horizons of knowledge. Once again, thanking you all for your cooperation and sincere participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Karthika. It's your single-minded pursuit and meticulous planning, made this conference a resounding the success. The end of a story is a new beginning for many others. On this note, let's conclude a remarkable and knowledgeable voyage. We promise you that in the coming years too, we'll keep on organizing conferences with more innovative ideas to nourish your mind and to widen your knowledge horizon. And thank you all for your cooperation and participation. And next, we have the national anthem. Thank you.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जगति तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, everyone. Devika ma'am, thank you so much.
Thank you, Devika ma'am. Hope to see you again in our college.
Yes, I am. I'm glad that I'm very glad to be here. I'm so glad you had a good conference also.
Yeah.
Now, there is this new rule that says that we cannot